If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and hit the subscribe button as well as the bell to be notified of future videos. Thank you.
Hello Internet, we are back. We're answering questions again. And I want to welcome all my guests here. Jack Greef, former Major, South African Special Forces, Lieutenant Colonel Doustein, South African Special Forces, Colonel Frans Fourie, South African Special Forces. I'm not going to ask them to repeat their backgrounds for us. We did it in the first episode. Please come back. I'll go back to that episode. I'll put the link in for you here as well as below. And let's carry on with the questions. The first one is somebody who asked, who's a fellow called, or what happened to a fellow called Pete O'Neill? Now, we were talking a little bit before we started here, and we believe that Jack Greef is able to tell us a story about this fellow. Jack, can you tell us who's Pete O'Neill, please?
Yes, I know Pete O'Neill from our days in the unit. He was a South African Air Force chopper technician. And just before retirement, we all participated in Operation Urik in Mozambique with the Rhodesians. It was a very big operation where we lost one Puma helicopter and a Huey helicopter, and if I'm correct, an Alouette was shot down. And every time the choppers went airborne, they were shot at and took hits in the blades and through the fuselage. And old Sergeant Major Pitt decided he's had enough of this. He's going to withdraw. He's going to back to Durban. He's too old for this kind of games. And he got on an aircraft. I think it was a Kudu or a Bosbok fixed wing on his way back to Pretoria. And on his way to Pretoria, the engine stalled, and they did an emergency landing somewhere on the road. And that was it. I think after that, we called him Wimpit, went on pension and retired. Very good, very experienced helicopter technician.
Right, that was a fascinating story. I myself would not like to fly with that man. No insults meant, but it seems to be a bit of a bringer of horror to airframes. Now let's go to the next question. And unlike the previous one, I'm going to rush this a bit because otherwise we'll never get through it. And these are busy people, I'm sure you understand. Frans Fourie, there's a question for you, sir. And it comes from your roommate. It must have been at university, same university I attended, by the way. We very, very highly rated university, even if I have to say so myself. From Yanni Fourie. I don't know if he's family of you, that would be my question. But what he wants to know is, and he was speaking in Afrikaans, but I'll translate it for everybody. He's asking if there was a difference in the nature of reconnaissance tasks, what you did for 3-2 Battalion and then for 1 and 4 reconnaissance regiments. And if there were a difference, or there was a difference, then what was this difference? Frans, if you can answer that first part, and then I'll go to the second question.
Of course, thank you very much. Yes, Yanni is a great guy and a very good sportsman. I think we were in Malays and he played first team for rugby, cricket and everything. To answer Yanni's question, thanks Yanni. I want to start that reconnaissance in 32 Battalion is more bush orientated, and I want to say on the operational and the tactical level. Now, all reconnaissance depends on the target as to where it is located and how far from your own forces support. So reconnaissance in 32 Battalion was mostly focused on tactical, as I've said, on the operational and tactical level. It's determining and finding out where there are bases, the approach routes to the bases, and then what is going on, and gather as much as possible information, and then handing that back to answer all the EEIs, and so that the attack force can plan and infiltrate. So it's primarily done in a clandestine way. You black as beautiful, you put on the uniform of the enemy and you do the reconnaissance. Reconnaissance in special forces is on the strategic level, the operational level, as well as on the operational level, or tactical level, sorry. So a lot of operations or reconnaissance would be then executed in a pretty much the same way as 32 Battalion would do that in terms of the clandestine operations. Then bear in mind that the mandate of special forces is to execute special operations to achieve national goals, or to get information on a national level. Therefore, we are mandated in special forces to use a series of type of reconnaissance, which is covert, clandestine, as well as pseudo operations. Now, I'm not, for answering this question, going to go into the difference or the difference between the different types of reconnaissance, but the main thing I want to lift out is to, on a national level or wherever the target may be, gather the information. May it be putting on black is beautiful, or dressing yourself as a Tom, Dick and Harry, or putting on a SWAPO uniform, drinking beer at the Kuka shop, or whatever. So I think the Special Forces mandate just allows you the broadest spectrum of methods to execute the operation. Most of the Special Forces operations was beyond the support of the normal support structures of the military, i.e. being artillery or SAF or Navy support. But in most of the cases, you would have either Air Force support or Army support or naval support. But we also had the additional capability to do covert operations where you had no support, and could execute in a covert way operations well beyond, in Europe, in Russia, in wherever. So that's the main differences. If I hope I've answered Yanni's question. Thank you.
Then we have the next question here. It's also for you, Frans. Same person, Yanni. He's asking you which was the most difficult or the most dangerous of these reconnaissance tasks.
All reconnaissance are dangerous and difficult. So, you know, I cannot lift out any specific reconnaissance, you know, and the tactical situation on the ground can change with a wink of an eye. So I cannot lift out any reconnaissance that was more dangerous per se as another one. Although if you start going beyond areas where you don't have radio communication, you are completely on your own, you and your buddy, you are pretty much isolated. And the ways you have derived, or the methods you have to communicate back to your base HQ. You know, if you cannot use a HF or a satellite telephone or whatever, you know, then you are very isolated, and it brings a bit of a different dimension to your aptitude and what you have to do, how you plan, and then your escape and evasion, which you are very well trained in, and your planning should be meticulous in terms of getting away in any circumstances become very important. So to summarize, no, I don't think there was one specific one I can lift out that was more. Yeah, there's some that's more hairy, but all reconnaissance, especially in small teams, is a specific operation and is challenging. Thank you.
Well, I suppose the results will be the same if you are captured. I mean, your mission are compromised and you will be not treated well. But let us go to the next question. This is directed to all of you. It's from Jeff Chandler, and he's from Durban. You're welcome here, Jeff. He says he did his national service in 5SI from June 1974 to 1975. And he says he remembers Jack Greef, who was the Vickers machine gun instructor in the second phase at that time. Now, I don't know if Jack remembers him, but his question to all three gentlemen is, what was their favorite choice of automatic rifle during the entire Bushfall? Can we start with you, Jack, because he's one of your former men, and then we'll ask Doe, because he's been quiet, and then we'll get to Frans.
Of course, yes. I had many national servicemen going through my hands at 5SI. I was the Vickers machine gun platoon sergeant there, and I cannot specifically recall the surname Chandler. I remember some of the guys, but not all of them. But interesting, the Vickers machine gun we used in Operation Savannah when I left 5SI in a very unconventional way. The machine gun is very heavy. At total, it weighs 90 kilograms, 90 kilograms, with the tripod and the gun. We used it on Operation Savannah. We use it in a fire movement role during company attack. So the number 1, 2, and 3 Vickers guys would carry that machine gun and run with the infantry troops and keep up with the infantry troops to provide support fire. When it gets to choosing my favorite weapon, when I did reconnaissance tasks, I preferred the M16, which we had some of, with the M203 grenade launcher mounted below the handguard. So you had quite a lot of firepower, and the weapon was very light, so you could move, carry more ammo, and you had mobility with the light weapon. But if I have to make war in Africa, there's only one rifle that stands out, and that's the AK-47, the 7.62 by 39 caliber, which you can find ammo anywhere, and it's just the obvious choice if you want to make war in Africa, not specialized operations.
Oh, what do you answer to this question? The best rifle for Africa?
Of course, yes, I want to agree with Jack there that the AK-47 was a very good rifle to use. But, if you look at the type of weapons in terms of, you make your own choice from a heavy weapon to a lighter weapon. And the lighter weapons in terms of platoon was the PKM and was the RPD that we used. And if you go higher up into vehicles, then you look at the 23 millimeter and you look at the 14.7. So personal level, I'm looking at and I enjoyed using the RPD and also the PKM. There's both Russian-made machine guns. Thank you.
Frans, what do you think?
Well, it all depends on the type of operation you are allocated and have to execute, and the position or where you have to go and execute the task. But I agree with Jack and Doe. My first choice of the hand weapon is the AK-47, 7.62 by 39, as Jack mentioned. I just want to say, in seaborne operations whilst diving, even landing on beaches where your breech and the rifle gets clogged up with sand, you can rest assured, if you get out of the water and you've done a beach landing, you can rely on the AK-47. It will fire first shot. The heavier or light machine guns, my preference is the PKM. It's the 7.62 by 54 rim. It fires the same cartridge as the Dragunov sniping rifle. You get a variety of ammunition, from incendiary to armor piercing, etc. So that would be my first choice as a machine gun or a light machine gun. And then, as Doe mentioned, if you go to mobile operations, the 14.5 is the weapon of choice for myself. Thank you.
Yes, that's a Russian 3006, I believe, that caliber. That's what they call it. The question is not asked there, but can I ask you quickly then, what type of firearm would you prefer in the sense of a handgun? For self-defense, right inside your house right now. If you could have any limit, unlimited, no money problems, no license problems. I know there's a lot of people who would, for self-defense purposes want to know, what would you recommend? So we started. Jack, what do you think?
When it gets to handgun, there's only one choice, is the FN Browning high power. As far as I'm concerned, all the others are inferior to that firearm.
No? Do you have preferences?
Exactly the same than Jack, also the high power Browning, because that's the one that we used. And we used it in the water, we used it out of the water, used it everywhere, and there was never ever a time that I can say it will not shoot or it will leave me by not shooting. Yes, high power Browning.
And now I believe it would be the turn of Frans Fourie to tell us what he's got there on the farm.
Chris, I have a HP Browning. It's the first rifle I've ever possessed. I put on Pachmeyer grip, but that is my handgun of choice. The profile, the thickness, etc., is top of the class. Then I can also say that when we did the urban and terrorist training in Israel, that's what the Israelis used as well. So we extensively use that. It's, to my opinion, the best weapon you can possess.
Well, gentlemen, I think a lot of people will agree with you. Let's go to the next question. It was by Dries Creer. It's also in Afrikaans, but I'm going to translate it. Look, I take for granted that somebody who speaks Afrikaans and can write to me probably are able to follow English as well. And we are trying to reach a wider audience as well. That's why we do it in English. We've got nothing against Afrikaans. We are native speakers ourselves. But Dries is asking us a question to everyone. He says he's got a book with Daniel Roxo. I hope I say his name correct. And he wants to know if any of you actually knew Daniel Roxo. Jack, did you know this man? I know he was a famous Special Forces guy, one of the first, and he was killed, I believe. He's late now.
Yes, I had the privilege of working with Danny Roxo during Operation Savannah, the Angolan Civil War. Yeah, he was an excellent soldier. He was very experienced. At that time, he came from Mozambique, where he really chased the Frelimos around in the bush, and they didn't have a solution to him. He was like a one-man army. And when I met him during Operation Savannah, we were in charge of the FNLA contingent during that war, and he had a platoon. He was a platoon sergeant or platoon leader during the operation, and I was in a mortar platoon. I had a mortar platoon, and as I said, highly experienced. He knew his enemy very well. He knew how they think, and that instilled a lot of confidence in his troops and in our younger guys. Imagine myself, I was very young infantry corporal at that stage. My first war, first people that I see dead and dying and burning. And Daniel was calm. During each contact, he would do his thing as calm as you can find anybody during a contact. During lull-in operations, he had the habit of going out into the field and shoot pigeons with a shotgun that he have found somewhere in a Portuguese house. Remember, the Portuguese have fled. Most of the houses were just left behind with everything in it. And many houses we walked in, there were hunting rifles galore, very rare rifles. And he picked the best shotguns he could find. and ammunition, and went pigeon shoot or bird shooting, game bird shooting. Otherwise, in base he was a very quiet person, no problems, instilled a lot of confidence, and he was sadly killed in, I think it was a motor vehicle accident or a landmine, while in the beginning stages of forming 3-2 Battalion. Those FNLA troops that we trained during Operation Savannah, that we fought with in Operation Savannah, were brought back to South Africa, and they became the founder members of 3-2 Battalion. And people like Danny Roshu and a couple of other Recce Special Forces guys assisted in the initial phases to get 3-2 off the ground and running with Colonel Breitenbach initially.
How did you perhaps know Roshu? And I apologize for saying his name wrong.
No, I think Jack covered everything. I didn't know him personally. I read a few books about him, and I think it was a privilege to work with him, as Jack said, and he was a good soldier. Thank you.
Frans, I know you arrived a bit later than the rest. Did you know him, man?
Because I think I was still in nappies when Daniel started fighting the war. No, I never fought with him. But to add to what Jack and Douwe said, Colonel Breitenbach remarked, and Colonel Breitenbach was present when the vehicle he was traveling in overturned and it pinned him down. Now, I've read that, and Colonel Breitenbach has told me the story as well. So he was pinned, by the vehicle, and they tried to lift the vehicle, but they couldn't lift the vehicle. So he was sitting there in agony, and he took out a cigarette, lit the cigarette, smoked the cigarette, and apparently after he had the last cigarette, he passed away. And Colonel Breitenbach reports that he never moaned, groaned, or anything. So, being a soldier, the type of soldier he was, and dying in that way, I mean, he's just remarkable. Very high respect for the man. Thank you, Quest.
Okay, Dries is carrying on here. He's asking us, to all of you, should you have done a reconnaissance on an enemy base or even a harbor? Well, how long would that information or the intelligence which you gathered, how long would that be useful for an operation when you're planning it? If we can start with Jack again.
Yeah, it depended on the target. If it was a guerrilla base, like a SWAPO base in the south of Angola, the first hint that they get of being compromised, of somebody knowing where the base is, they move. They just pick up their packs and move the base somewhere else. So the reconnaissance teams had to be very, very careful not to leave any signs, spoor, make noises, be seen by locals or whoever. They had to really move very, very carefully. And that was, I think, to add what Frans have said earlier, that was probably the most dangerous reconnaissance missions that you could go on, was finding a SWAPO base in South Angola where there's flat, there's no hills you can sit on and open. You've got to literally walk every meter to find the base. And in that process, you can bump into them, you can move into the base without even knowing it if you are not careful, and end up tomorrow morning lying somewhere in the base area, trying to hide yourself. Fixed structures like bridges and obviously refineries and that, obviously they stay there forever, but the protection measures can differ. So again, with the slightest information that they get that the place will be attacked, they beef up the security, dig trenches, put anti-aircraft heavy machine guns around the facility, and make it very difficult to get in. So, yeah, if all things goes right and the operation security of the operation is kept tight, a fixed structure like a refinery or a bridge should stay the same since the reconnaissance and up to the execution of the task. But one has to be very careful when you get to a guerrilla base, because they tend to change as a matter of standard security measure. I remember when we worked with UNITA, one morning somebody will run up to the camp and say, "We're moving," and you've got to pack up and start moving. You ask them why. He said, "No, so that the enemy does not find us here." And then you move 30, 40 kilometers further, you rest. So the guerrilla units are very, very flexible. One's got to be careful. But then again, normally before an operation is executed, the final reconnaissance goes in just to confirm the information that was gained during the initial reconnaissance. Thank you.
Doug, can we ask you for your opinion?
Yes, you ask us about the information. What is the time span on information? There's two types of information you get. You get your mobile information, meaning people and vehicles and so on, and then you get your fixed structures. If I just take a breach for an example, if you do a reconnaissance on a breach, the structure of the breach will stay the same. There's two things that can change for a breach reconnaissance. Is there sentries on the breach itself, and then also the water. It can be flowing faster or it can be flowing slower. So there's a few different types of information that you can gather, and that information in terms of sentries, in terms of water, in terms of things that can move, changes as it goes along, especially in the next 24 hours. And as Jack said, if you've been compromised, it changes immediately. So your information, structurally wise, technical in terms of your breaches, your refineries and stuff, that stay the same. But the others can expect that it can change. It like a river. A river can change overnight if there's a rain coming down. Thank you.
Hans, I have to ask you the same question.
Of course, I'm going to be very short. Jack and Doe has said what I wanted to say, and they are perfectly correct. Thank you.
I recall that something happened in the early 1990s in Umtata. There was a special forces raid on a house, which was being used for terrorism purposes, according to the information. And the special forces went in and they did a remarkably good job. Our late president, F.D. de Klerk, tried hard to get out of it afterwards. It's another story. But I recall reading at the TRC Commission that one of the things which went wrong is that the spies who were around the house left it. And then what happened, the special forces were not informed that this house was now standing basically empty for 20 hours or something before they arrived. And therefore there could have been, and I'm not saying it was like that, I doubt it, but there could have been innocents in the house which they were not briefed upon. So may I ask you quickly, when you do this in a counter-terrorism role, where you strike at the house, should it not be that those who's doing the reconnaissance should be there all the time in order to prevent, somebody innocent being in the house without the assaulting team knowing about it? Just a yes or no will be sufficient. It's just something which I was thinking about.
Didn't get the question 100%, but it sounds like you said the spy should be in position until the arrival of the raiding party. I think what went wrong there is your agents or the informants didn't do their job properly. But that's why a final reconnaissance by a unit member is always preferable. And then, of course, these agents and informants cannot always be trusted. But yeah, you should have surveillance of the target right up to the point where the strike goes in. And if that's not, and obviously the communication should be reliable. And there should have been a scheduled time where these agents or informants reported. If that wasn't done, then obviously the operations commander must be questioned, because your observers or whoever it is, whether it's an agent or a reconnaissance team or an informant, must have a schedule of reporting, a scheduled time where he reports to the operations commander the information that he's observing.
Okay, thank you. Do you have any comments, please?
Because I do agree with Jack. It is the ideal situation is to have informers or your unit members on the ground until the raiding party arrives. That's ideal. But ideal is not always possible. And we must work on information as close as possible to the raiding time, or else, like I just want to give an example, like the reconnaissance done by Jack and them, that was done 12 hours before the time. It could have changed if there was sentries and stuff like that. But yes, the ideal is to have somebody observing the target and ensure that whoever the target is, inside the house or outside, wherever, is still there. Because there was a lot of times that we attacked, that we will talk in the future about operations that the informer said the people is in the house, we must go and attack them the following night. And when we arrived at the house, there was nothing.
Hans, you've done the staff course. I'm sure you can plan operations. What's your answer?
Worse, no, it's got nothing to do with the staff course. The two gentlemen sitting there is much more seasoned. But Koos, what Doe and Jack said is perfectly correct. I actually wanted to add another element, and Jack mentioned that, is the influence of the population, and you also elaborated on that. So you would do a tactical reconnaissance on a SWAPO base or whatever, and you will find that there's a herd of cattle or goats or whatever is herded by a little boy, and they herd the area. And the goat and the cattle is strange things. When they see something or they smell something strange, they stop and they start barking and blaring and whatever. And the herders know their their animals. Then they know there's something, and they would drive the cattle or the whatever through your position. So tactically, that in the urban environment, exactly what Jack and Doe has referred to, to have your target under observation the whole time is of critical importance. That is why we developed the covert capability within all the reconnaissance units, because to be able to deploy to certain places that is 3-4 countries away from our borders where we executed operations, to halo in and paint yourself black and try and hide and so on. Yeah, you can do it, but there's easier ways to do that, which is also highly risky. And that's why we developed the covert teams within the units. And towards the end of the war, when certain operations were planned, as Doe said, which can be discussed at a later stage, that's exactly what we did. Because what Doe said and Jack, your agents and informants and so on, the communication with them and the way they interpret and see what is going on the target is not what you necessarily require through the eyes of the attacking force or a special forces operator. And the reason why after a certain stage or operations, it was compulsory that we do a small team operation like Jack has executed, is because your information changes and the infiltration routes and so on. There's a a new deployment on your infiltration route or whatever. That became standard drill. So 24 hours or 48 hours before the actual raid or attack, it is done by an operator who comes back, reports back, briefs the OC, briefs the teams, final questions are answered, and then normally, like the reconnaissance guys would lead the attack team towards the targets because they've done the reconnaissance. And when it's a helicopter infiltration, that team leader or reconnaissance person will sit in the tech seat between the two pilots, and he will be in direct communication with the pilots to take them to directly the target and to the predetermined drop zones or landing zones. And that's a standard drill. Thank you.
Can I just mention something or add something to this? Coming from more from the Navy side, we did a lot of submarine reconnaissance as well, where we did periscope reconnaissance in the harbors and also on the landing places where we must land our raiding teams. That is before the boats will go in. We do periscope reconnaissance to ensure that the sea is correct, the beach is correct. And then specifically on the harbor side, we're actually going into the harbor with a periscope and see where is which ships. And if that is still in the plan that we must blow up specific ships. Because ships is a thing that moves all the time. And the periscope reconnaissance of a submarine is one of the most effective ones in the sea and as close to possible to the raiding time of the submarine. Thank you.
Okay, this is directed to all of you. He wants to know what it takes for a man to make a selection, and what do you people look for a man during selection? What's inside him which makes him different, which makes him special? Jack, perhaps you can tell us. I know you were an instructor.
Anybody who wants to attempt becoming a reconnaissance or a special forces soldier the first thing he must do is get fit. If he's not fit, they will break him in the first day or two. He will not get any further than that. So you've got to be fit, but more importantly, hard. Body, physically hard, not just fit. We found that the gym guys, the guys that are pumped up at the gym arriving there, does not last. He's got too much weight to carry. He's got to eat too much. It does not last. You've got to be fit and hard. Your body must be worked hard in the form of a spade, carrying stuff, walking far, that kind of stuff. If you want to get fit, that's the line of fitness you must follow. Stay out of the gym. Gym is going to bring you nowhere on a special forces selection. That's a South African special forces selection. The other countries, some other countries, their people are pumped up and fed during selection to pass selection. In the special forces, South African special forces, we take away the food, we starve the guy, and we push him to his limits. So he's not going to get food. He must be hard, he must be fit. And then obviously endurance comes with that. He's got to have endurance. And then during the selection, obviously there's the psychologists that are supervising each student, and then looking for qualities such as teamwork, is a reaction under pressure. What else is there? Yeah, that's it. Basically, that's it. Those are the main qualities. There are other smaller things that they are looking at, temperament and stuff like that. Nowadays, selections are a bit shorter than what it was in our days, but observation of the student is much more intense.
Thank you. Doug, can you add?
Yes. The question was what you can see, and I want to change it a little bit around. Is the very first thing, if there's guys coming for selection, you can immediately see who's not going to make it. Not who's going to make it, but who's not going to make it in terms of body language, in terms of how you look, in terms of what you want from the course. It must just be said that the selection is not everything. The selection is only there to decide who's going further on Special Forces training. After the training, 9 months of training, then you qualify as a Special Forces operator. The time of selection is short, it is quite intense, and before the selection, you also do your psychological test, there's various tests that you do, psychological, medical, and so on, to see if you're ready to go into the course in terms of fitness tests as well. Then on the selection course, and I was quite instrumental in the short courses. We started the short courses off from the long course. The three of us sitting here were still maybe doing the long courses. But the short courses, we used to call it a short courses between 5 and 7 days, where we did a course of 21 days, is more, there's a certain criteria that you look at in a soldier or in a selection of a soldier. That there's about 13 points criteria that you're looking at for a guy, and this 13 points was not sucked out of our thumbs or just think, okay, that's what it must have. They evaluated quite a lot of old operators, and out of that evaluation came, and they said, okay, this is a criteria that a soldier must have to pass a selection course. Now in the selection course, it is very interesting. They will divide up into teams, and they will do short distances, walking or doing whatever they must do. But every group is followed by an old operator as well as a psychologist. Both of them do have mark sheets where they then mark off the criteria of, yeah, this oak is giving leadership, or this oak is doing this, or this oak. So then you get marks out of that exercise he's doing, because the whole selection course is done by exercises. Then he will pass all the exercises. Then by the end of the day, you will get a full remark. There's a lot of guys that pass the course physically, but do not pass the course due to other reasons. So yeah, he's there, but he's not there anymore. So he's not qualified to carry on with your training of a Special Forces operator. Then on your training for a Special Forces operator is, you must have, there's various subjects, and in that subject you must have 80% plus. In some of them 90% in terms of your demolitions and things like that. But I think talking about selection, it is, I think, another talk that can take place in terms of the detail of the selection, how we did the selection, and what is really the result and what we want out of a selection course, and why there is a thing like a selection. And yes, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Frans, do you have any comments on this?
Yes, I think valuable, Jack and Doe. I want to add, please, maybe linking to what Doe just said. Remember, if you talk about selection, it's the first phase of determining if you can carry on. Then, prior to obtaining qualification as a Special Forces operator, it's building blocks going through the different training phases. And only after that, I don't know, in the later stages, but after, even if you completed your last course, the minor tactics, you deploy as a junior with senior operators into a operational situation where you have a contact or execute a certain task. And when you return, only then the old operators will say, no, we don't want that guy. And it's happened. And then that guy, he's passed the selection, he's gone through the building blocks, but he doesn't quite, he doesn't get the operator's badge. So I think that's very, very important. The old operators know when and what is required in terms of that. Because then I just want to run through my list. I think the first thing is it's the will to do, the mental tenacity of anybody that is inspiring to become a Special Forces member. So his mental setup must be correct. He or she, no, not she, we'll talk about that later. But he should understand and read and listen to what Special Forces are and what they execute. So becoming a Special Forces operator means that you can die at any stage. So there's a lot of questions, and I think it's going to follow on that. So you must understand, you not are if you attempt Special Forces selection and to become a Special Forces operator, you're not doing that to become a tap dancer or whatever or a pole dancer in a strip bar. You are selected and evaluated to execute Special Forces operations. Then physical fitness and strength, as Jack said. Jack put it 100%. Forget about pumping iron in the gyms. I think in my whole life I haven't spent 5 hours in a gym, but I'm not the alpha and the omega. Then the ability to endure and to frostbite, to go without food, to go without sleep, to endure pain. There's a lot of people, they had blisters on their feet. To walk and to carry on for literally hundreds of kilometers with blisters on your feet. There's something towards that. Then I think the next one is the ability to overcome fear. The unknown is always linked to fear. So if you can, come into peace with the unknown, I think that's a very, very important thing I personally encountered. Now, I just want to take that from my selection. I think for the first week I was with buddies, and then for 3 weeks I was on my own, just myself, walking around the bush in the Caprivi, lion, leopard, everything. And so, the night, the spiders and whatever, if you with, because there's a spider or a snake, please reconsider or fix your brain. Then I think self-discipline is very, very important, to discipline yourself in terms of everything, your discipline, your mind, discipline the way you act, you do, you react, etc. So self-discipline and bringing yourself on orders. If you're lying there under a tree or whatever, think about whatever and discipline yourself. Then I think the belief in yourself, and then obviously your creator. If you are in peace with yourself, if you don't have issues, just be in peace with yourself. I am what I am due to the fact that my creator created me the way I am, and I am going to do the following, or attempt to do the following. That's my basic list of if I can give direction to anybody that would like to attempt this. And then the last one is, it's a fascinating career. From submarines to diving to haloing to shooting whatever and blowing up whatever. I mean, can you think of a more fascinating career? So if you really want to do that career and you are mentally in line, that's what it is. Thank you.
Chris, can I just add something here? International research have shown that only about 5% of a country's male population is suitable for Special Forces. It's an international recruit study that was done. And then the other important thing which I've seen in my career in recce's is the final selection is when there's an armed contact and there are people dead during that contact. We've had a number of qualified operators that have gone through the whole rigmarole, and after the first contact, we've lost one or two guys. Suddenly, he's got to go to the farm and start farming and run his mother's business or sort of thing, and they pull out. So that, I think, is the final selection, is that when people start dying, that's when the final thing kicks in. Thanks.
Thank you for that. It was really enlightening for me to hear everything. I spoke to a few police special task force members, and they said to me, if a guy arrives there with a Rambo haircut and the gym body, he's gone. They will break him in 2 days. Don't know how applicable that is, but I had something with that guy. Anyway, next question, Frans. It seems that you are wearing on your step out jacket something which looks like a dolphin in a circle, and then there's a little chain on it. Now, what would that be?
Well, yeah, thank you very much. He's referring to the attack diving badge. Now, the chain, it's not a chain. It's the breathing hoses of the oxy-gear rebreathing set. So from the top, you will find the beginning of the hoses going around, and at the bottom, you have the mouthpiece. So the mouthpiece is what you put in your mouth, obviously, and the one tube pushes the exhaling, back through the proton, and then it gets enriched by oxygen, and so it's the rebreathing pipe. Then the dolphin, no, it's not the dolphin. It was designed by Colonel Hannes Venter, and at that stage, and he became Brigadier General Krubert Nel, the attack diving badge, and it is the great white shark. I don't want to try and pronounce the scientific name of it, but in any case, why the great white shark? Because he's the pinnacle of the predators within the ocean. So that's the significance of the great white shark. Then, interestingly enough, it was written like that, and when it went to heraldry in the HQ, they wrote there it's a Zambezi shark. But no, it was intended, and it's meant to be a great white shark. Then the spear, or the fork that is there, it's the Aquarius poke of the god of the sea, and the three prongs that is in there, the trident has got three prongs, and that indicates that they can execute and operate within three environments, which is the sea, the oceans, the lakes, and the rivers or estuaries. And that's the significance of the attack diving badge, Chris. Thank you.
Yeah, I think in future, so we should talk about the insignia of special forces, as well as the different medals. Been asked about that many times. Now let's go to the next question. I'm not sure from who this came, but it says that Bush was extended periods of deployment. What was your toilet and hygiene protocol? Did you use toilet paper? And how did you keep your teeth clean? Anybody who wish to volunteer and tell us, you're welcome.
Yes, we keep our teeth clean with the toilet paper.
Very good, that one. Dirk, do you agree?
Chris, yes. hygiene and was very important, especially on extended operations. And the toilet paper was, the army referred to that as white gold. Now, I hated white toilet paper, and I actually had a project going to try and find green toilet paper. And the only army that used green toilet paper at that time was the Americans, that they made in Vietnam. So taking a roll of white toilet paper from a hide and then sneaking out of the hide to go and do your thing in the bush was always very stressful for me. But anyway, hygiene was very important. So we used the cat method. Under normal circumstances, we use the cat method. Go do your thing in a little hole, and then cover it, and then camouflage it very carefully, and make sure the white toilet paper doesn't stick out the ground. In hard surface areas, obviously, it's a problem. But in certain hides where we were very close to the enemy, we could not move out of the bush to go and defecate or urinate. So you had to lie where you are or sit where you are and do your thing right in the bush next to your buddy, and get rid of that, whatever you did, get rid of that in such a way that you don't smell it the whole day, or that you sit on it or step in it or later on during the day. So it was a very important. Brushing teeth was an important thing. You know, if you go in a 4, 5, 6 weeks operation with UNITA, for instance, and you don't look after yourself, you're going to start getting sores in your mouth and all over your body. So whenever we had a bit of water, we would wash. As far as brushing teeth is concerned, when on reconnaissance missions, we will not use toothpaste. We'll just use a normal toothbrush, and make sure our mouth is clean, massage the gums. If you lose your toothbrush, you can use a stick, a little small twig from a eucalyptus or guarri bush or other bushes, that just flatten it like a little brush, and then just make sure that your teeth are clean. Be careful not to injure your gums, because then it might turn into festering sores. Thanks.
So Frans, it's for you now to explain how you did your stuff in the bush.
Yeah, no, I think Jack pretty much summed it up. I agree. White gold, as Doe said. And then, personal hygiene is extremely important. You have to keep yourself healthy. And I cannot add more to what Jack has spoken about. But maintaining yourself is very, very important.
Yes, I just want to add, when we brushed our teeth, that water that you use to rinse your mouth with, you don't spit that out. You swallow it, because we operated on such low quantities of water every day that you could not afford to spit that water out. So you brush your teeth, rinse your mouth, swallow the water.
Now, I've read a few books of a special air service, the British one, UK one, and they would claim, I don't know if it's true, of actually carrying the stuff out with him. Was there ever such a need in South African Special Forces to bring the urine and the more solids out?
You can't drink urine. You can, but it's not going to help much. So we never did that. The feces, there were times where guys had to carry that out, and that's normally put in a Ziploc bag, 2 Ziploc bags, and add some, I think it's bicarb of soda or something to that, just to keep the smell down. But that was very limited cases, and I never did that. The other thing that also happens when you're in the bush and you start burning energy, your body starts feeding on itself, if you can call it that. So you very seldom go out on toilet routine, except obviously, if you pick up jipper gut and you start having runny stomachs and that kind of stuff. Otherwise, the times that you go to the toilet seriously reduced.
Oh, I know you wanted to say something.
Of course, yes. I just want to add to Jack with the brushing of the teeth and whatever we did. We also used ash from the fires to brush our teeth with. And then, as they said, the personal hygiene is very important. And you'll see that when working with the UNITA forces, we did wash in the rivers and places like that. And there were always sentries out there to see if there's not crocodiles attacking you while you're washing in the river, or what you can do. But yes, and then we also used, in some occasions, especially with UNITA, a special soap that we use. It's an antibacterial soap that we use. And I'm talking about long deployments for 4 months to 4 to 5 months at a time. Then they supply us with this type of soap just to try to keep us clean.
Well, this dedication, serious dedication. Okay, now we have the question which I'm often asked by the viewers, and that is hand-to-hand combat. So the question here is to everyone, once again, and it asks if Special Forces have a hand-to-hand combat training curriculum, and if so, which one? I suppose which one, boxing or Krav Maga or whatever. And also, were there ever situations where the soldiers engaged in hand-to-hand combat? Jack, what do you think?
No, we did not have a fixed hand-to-hand combat curriculum, for the simple reason, to get to a high level of competency with hand-to-hand combat, you've got to do constant training, and that can only be done by a peacetime army where that's all they do is keep them busy for 3-4 hours a day. That's the first thing. So we never had that. We were too busy on operations. Whenever the guys got back from operations, and they sit around doing nothing, somebody will get a civilian specialist, and they will come and teach us knife fighting or hand-to-hand combat for a day or 2 or 3 until we have to deploy, and then that's it. So during those times, we focus mainly on the targets on the body, the vital areas on the body, where you hit a guy, where you kick him, where you stab him with a knife, where you hit him with a blunt object, that kind of stuff. So whether that stuck with the operators was his personal commitment to his own upliftment during training. So if he took what he got and then went and kept that current by hitting a bag or kicking his buddy or whatever, it would have helped him some way. But I know many guys have practiced that in the Father's Moustache and the London Town Pub. What they've been taught the day they went for practical training at night, and some civvies came short. That's about it. As I said, we never, and I'm not aware of any Special Forces operation where guys got involved in a hand-to-hand fight with the enemy. It's much easier to shoot him than to try and strangle him to death. Thanks.
Thank you, Jack. We appreciate that. Doe, is there any something you want to add?
Yes, of course. I want to add, or not add, I will add it, is that I do agree with Jack 100%. We rather spend our time in firearm handling than fighting each other on a bag or this or that. So we became professionals in firearm training and not in personal fighting. We did a lot of social hand-to-hand combat in various places, as Jack said that. But I just want to mention an incident that happened but did not happen. In my research on Iron Fist from the Sea, I came across the Russians, and they claimed that they, on the Operation Dross Day, that was in the harbor of Namib, they dived and they came across our divers, and they attacked us with knives, and there was a hell of a fight under the water, and where they fight with knives, where they shoot with Glocks and things like that. That was purely a propaganda move by them, where they just go and show, yes, that is what we did. I had the opportunity to go to Russia and to go and explain to them that type of propaganda they're using. And I did that in the veterans organization in Moscow. I told them and I showed them that type of propaganda, what they use is wrong. It never happened anywhere where a Russian soldier met a South African soldier underwater. And then they only agreed when I proved to them that there was nothing like that. And their propaganda on winning the war under the water, and they lost the ships, but they were fighting underwater, was never the truth. And I stopped that there in the veterans organization in Moscow when I was invited by them. Thank you.
Thank you, Doug. Frans?
Because I think the whole thing about close combat stems or originates from the Second World War. The environment where you actually execute a war, I think determines what you require to do. So your bayonet training at infantry level, yes, it comes from there. In the Boer War, I think the commandos, the Boers, they said the thing they feared the most was the lances of the British cavalry. Either that long bayonet or the lances. They say they feared that completely. I think the war era we were in was totally different. Sneaking up to somebody, trying to hee-haw, whatever him know. We've progressed. We've moved on. We had silenced pistols, which we carried with ourselves. So I don't think the requirement was there for hand-to-hand combat, hence what Jack and Doe has explained. So no, we're not there to, if you get that close to the enemy and you want to kill him, do it in an easy way and a professional way, shoot him through the head with a silenced pistol and finish him klar. So, yeah, that's my stance on it.
Okay, thank you. I'm sure that answers many questions. Let us go to the next one. The question is that the trauma of near-death misses, killing, losing bodies, suffering, maiming, etc. ever affected you psychologically in the sense of PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder? And then if so, how did you handle or process it? Jack, did you ever suffer from nerves afterwards?
Post the PTSD, the first time I heard it was from the Americans. We never heard that term, and we never used it when I was in the military. Our support base was much stronger than the Americans. Our guys were volunteers. Firstly, we had the unit chaplain who was very, very much involved with the operators day to day. He was walking in the passages, mingling with the operators. At Friday nights, he would sit in the pub with them, and the operator had as much time as he wished to share whatever worried him, share that with the unit chaplain. Then the camaraderie within the unit was also very strong. So if any operator had a problem, normally the other operators pick that up, and then somebody will go and talk to him, and he will pack out, and it might end up the guy going to a team leader or a commando OC and sort the problem out. if it's a marriage, a domestic problem, or it's a psychological problem. But in my team, the teams that I commanded, we never had that. And I'm not aware of any such PTSD problems that we had in the unit. I think it was mainly because of the strict selection. A guy that was a druggie or a junkie before he joined the unit will never make it through the selection. And those are normally the guys that after his training or after his military career blame the military for his problem and try to get that off his shoulder by blaming someone else. That's my feeling of PTSD. Yeah, it was never a problem in the unit.
No.
I want to agree with Jack. I never, in my career in Special Forces, never experienced a guy like having PTSD. I must also say that, as Jack said, we will talk to each other and we will motivate each other. But one of the things that keeps the unit together was humor. We talked, we joked, we always was on a talking and making jokes of things to get what's done past us and look into the future. And that was a big support base that we had, was our friends, our operators working with us. We spoke the same language, we went through the same trauma, we went through the same things. So we stood up, we fight as a team, and we stood up as a team and make ready and prepare for the next operation. Thank you.
Hans?
Course, I agree with what Jack and Douwe said. I would like to add, I think, the loss of a buddy does influence you. How and to what level, it differs from individual to individual. But as Jack and Douwe has explained, mentally, you know what you are up to when you join Special Forces. So you can die, your buddy can die. And yes, then I think Douwe just now referred to incidences where, people has come through the whole thing, the training, the selection, everything. And then they are in a contact and a situation where they lose people, or is it Jack? Sorry, but the situation was mentioned. And then people realize, dying and seeing people burning, bleeding, mutilated, and so on, has a certain impact. And then, I want to say, I respect, and I have a few friends that has experienced that, fully trained, selected, whatever, in 32 Battalion, as well as in Special Forces. They just said, no, thank you, I've had enough. Now, people climbing out at that stage, admitting that they are influenced by that situation, I respect very much. I think there are people that, they suppress that and still stay part of the organization, but to my opinion, remains a risk within your team or organization that will flinch when you get to a certain point where you are under pressure. So, and it didn't happen, it didn't materialize. But I think, to my opinion, that's my theory about it. Course, and then I would just like to add, the things in the war and the bush, whatever, no, that's fine. And the PS, stuff, no. But, if you go to the funeral of, your buddies and people you lived with, and he's a Special Forces makker, what always touches me up to this day is the relatives of the person that has passed away. To see the grief and the sadness of wives, of parents, of children. Hell, I don't know why, but that touches me. The loss of a buddy, I can work through that, but for me personally, it's difficult, to see how the children and the wives and the parents sometimes suffer. That sometimes to me brings a tear. And but yes, after the funeral or after we've buried the person, and we have a tradition that if we bury something, if the coffin hits the ground, the operators cover the coffin, and and then we go for a drink afterwards, and then it's over and done with. It's something of the past. You learn what has happened and you carry on. Thank you.
Thank you for those answers. It's appreciated. Now we're coming to a difficult question from the same person. It's asking here, have you ever had to kill someone pleading for his or her life? And if so, do you still grapple with it? Jack?
Of course, personally, never. I have never done that. Although I have killed, I mean, I was in the right place at the right time. I have killed. The nature of recce operations are such that the operations are swift. There's no time to negotiate life or death between a captured guy or an enemy soldier or somebody popping up in front of you. And the enemy knew it. So all the recce actions that I've been involved in was swift. It was quick. The enemy pops up and he knows what the outcome will be, and he dies quickly. There were instances where we have captured somebody, interrogated him during a reconnaissance, and then had to get rid of the guy, disposed of him. And but even that, somebody that gets captured in the bush knows what the outcome will be, and things happen very, very quickly. So there's no time to consider or think or negotiate. I hope that answers the question.
Yes, thank you. Do you have anything?
There was nothing. I was never in a situation where I had to fight, kill, or something. A lot of my actions did kill people, but in personal, looking him in the eyes and he looking me in the eyes and killing him, that's a situation I was never in. I could never say that I killed somebody. Thanks.
Thank you. Frans?
Yes, yes. I want to add to what Jack said. War is a nasty thing. And you know what war is about? Killing or being killed. So, the one who's the quickest on the draw, coming back from the cowboy years. Now, we were not cowboys. But as Jack has said, yes, and I've been in those situations. Similarly, bumping into somebody in the bush or whatever. So that's what war is all about. War is nasty. Same story about being captured. If you are captured and or compromised captured, the chances of you being annihilated is similarly equal to the vice versa. So no, let's not get emotional about these things. No, if you have to do a job, you do it clinically, you get it sorted out, and carry on.
Thank you for that. The next question is, how do you cope with being hunted continuously? I suppose what's meant by that, you're behind enemy lines, a small group of people. How do you cope with this idea that the entire army is looking for you, as well as an air force or a navy, the civilians, police, whoever is looking for you, even dogs? Jack?
I prayed a lot whenever I was hiding in the bush. So prayer was very, very important. And we were not allowed to carry our Afrikaans Bibles with us for a reason of tracing that back to South Africa. So we had to carry English Bibles with us if we carried English Bibles. And a friend of mine, my buddy, Sam, when one day I confronted him, I said, hey, you cannot take that Afrikaans Bible with you on patrol, on this operation. He said, look, we are the only guys in Africa carrying Bibles with us. in the bush on operations. So whenever we captured, whether it's an English or Afrikaans Bible, they'll know we are the Boers operating here. So he carried his Afrikaans Bible. I went to a compromise and I cut out Psalm 23, Psalm 91 out of my little PW Botha Bible, and I laminated that with plastic and I hid it in my pockets of my shirt. And whenever, before close, well, every night, before the night part of the operation, every morning before first light, as soon as it's light enough, I would read Psalm 91, read Psalm 23. It's always better to read it than to say it out of the head. And that gave me my strength to start off with. And then obviously, you cannot now rely on prayer to keep you safe the whole day. So you've got to bring your side of the bargain, of the deal. And there we relied on our evasion tactics, anti-tracking, and alertness. In a reconnaissance team, we never sat together. It separated. We were always separated some distance, depending on the terrain, from each other. And what that facilitated was that the reconnaissance, each member of the team is very, very alert because he's on his own. His hearing is not affected by the other guy. And so they are very, very alert and eventually alive. We had evasion tactics, which we did, like dog legs. When you sit in a hide, you turn your back against the wind so the wind can assist with bringing noises into the hide and that kind of stuff. So it's all small things that contributed to the survival of the team. And in many cases, saved our lives. Camouflage, evasive tactics, minor tactics, bushcraft, and that kind of stuff. So, yeah, self-discipline, prayer. Thanks.
Joe, do you have anything?
Yes, I want to agree with Jack what he said, is that we rely on God. First, secondly, we rely on your friend that's next to you, your buddy as I call it, and his capabilities and his strength that he gives to you and the strength that you give to him. And then thirdly, the most important thing is the training we did, to rely on our training, to execute our training on the way that Jack mentioned in terms of minor tactics, minor little operations. It's the minor little things in training that make you surviving the situation where you're in. And then the last thing is the communication with information that we receive and how we deal with that information in terms of routes to follow, escape and evasion routes to follow. So there are information on what you gather throughout from your local population through to Unita people, through to whoever. That is the information that make you survive situations like that. Thank you.
And now we will ask Frans Borrie for his opinion.
Jack and Doe has said whatever. I'm not going to belabor the point, but I think training and mental aptitude, takes you through that. Your belief system, the praying, whoever. But yes, your maintaining yourself is very important.
Okay, thank you for that. Let's go to the next question. I think we're doing very well. I really appreciate your time, everybody listening here as well. What it says here is, what makes men attack headlong into a firefight, knowing full well that they could be killed? Because the natural instinct is to choose safety rather than exposure. So how do you avoid panic in such a tight spot? Now, we did sort of answer it last week when we were talking about Kerslig, I believe. So we don't want to go into too much detail here. Jack, do you have a few words?
Yeah, I think the important thing is one must distinguish between a volunteer and a national serviceman. When you volunteer for the Special Forces, you've volunteered a couple of times already. You've volunteered permanent force, you volunteered parachute training, you volunteered selection, you volunteered everything. Everything is volunteer. So you know what you're letting yourself in for. So the mindset is slightly different than between the Special Forces guy and a National Serviceman guy who has been called up and almost forced to attack headlong. Firstly, the mission is important. We need to complete the mission. And then with the mission in mind, like we've said many times, the training kicks in, and the camaraderie kicks in, the buddy support kicks in, the adrenaline starts pumping, and all of this have been trained and rehearsed before the operation. So there's very little that can go wrong, except for you taking a bullet and die or get wounded in the process. So that all forms like a machine, an oiled machine that you switch it on, put it in gear, and you start driving towards the enemy. It's as simple as that. The difference comes in between the highly trained Special Forces guy that have volunteered for everything up to that point, and then your national serviceman who just prays that these 2 years or 1 year will finish, that he can go home. Although I must add, our national servicemen guys did very well in a lot of the big operations, and I'm very proud of our young infantry guys and other corps that have gone into battles as a national serviceman, and they actually much braver than the guy who volunteered. If they still, despite having been called up, despite being forced to be there where he is, still going to battle and execute the mission.
Thank you, Jack. Doe, you have a few words?
I will be short. There's two types of operations that you get where you get confronted. The first one is all the sabotage operations that we did into an infrastructure. There we try to avoid contact. There we try to avoid everything to do your operation on the mission that is given to you by blowing up a bridge. You avoid everybody and you go and do your job. You sabotage your bridge, you destroy the bridge, and you come back. You actually walk circles around the enemy, not to make contact and to have a big wall there, because then you don't complete your mission. Whereas on the other side, on a bush walls in 5 recce, there you get, for example, attack of bases, SWAPO bases, enemy bases and things. There you go out to go and make contact. There you go out to go and kill people because it's them or you. That is your mission. So it all depends on your mission, on how you will survive that mission. And that is the two differences into a sabotage operation and a operation attacking military hardware, military soldiers and other bases and so on. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Frans, any ideas?
Yeah, of course, if you join Special Forces or the Army voluntary, you know what you let yourself into. War is not a poker game. It is physical, and you can die or they can die. And the execution of operations is planned well and clinical. And sometimes, as Doe has just said, and Jack, sometimes it's aimed against a base or people, and sometimes it's aimed against infrastructure or denying the enemy the freedom of movement. So that's what you've enrolled for. That's what you've been trained for. Execute. Clinically correct.
Thank you, which brings me to the next question. Should you have killed somebody now, do you ever reflect on it? Do you ever think about it? This guy perhaps also had some parents suffering grief. Jack?
No, not really. I sleep well at night. I don't have any regrets what I did. I think there's an old saying that pops up in the movies every time, is that those that I've killed had to be killed. So it really doesn't bother me. Frans have mentioned an important thing earlier, is that what bothers me more is losing your own buddies or a buddy, and then the family of that buddy. That tends to stick with me for a while. My first big operation was Savannah, where a lot of people were killed. I mean, it was almost a semi-conventional war. It was a lot of a lot of enemy soldiers killed there. And you drove through them as you advanced towards Luanda. They were lying everywhere next to the road in burnt out vehicles, etc. And that stuck with me for a while when I was in the infantry, especially the first sighting I had of people that had been burnt out lying in a vehicle, grinning at us while as we drove past. That stuck with me for a while, but never for long. So no, I sleep well at night.
Thank you for that, Jack. Dope, any comments?
There's no regrets, no comments, and I live a peaceful life.
Thank you. Frans, do you have anything?
Yeah, same as my two colleagues. No regrets. He who's the quickest on the trigger survives the day. So no regrets. As Jack said, sleep well in the day and living a joyful life.
Sorry, Chris, if I can mention a regret. The regret is that the war finished. That's my regret.
Right, the next one says, everyone hopes that they will appear brave in critical moments, but most pretend to have been brave after the ordeal is over. But what is the typical MO, I suppose, modus operandi, of someone who truly was brave and was courageous? Jack, if you have comments on this?
I received the honoris crux. I never wanted to be brave. I did my job. I carried out the mission. And in the process, somebody decided I need that medal. I think we've covered this to a large extent, is that we volunteer and then a national serviceman is a non-volunteer. And I think the national servicemen that are tasked to attack a platoon of Rottles or a company of Rottles like 6-1 Mech. Their mission is to attack an enemy position where the enemy is entrenched and there are tanks and that kind of stuff, like in those big operations in Angola. Those national servicemen are as brave as the Special Forces guys, because they don't want to be there. They've been forced to be there, and they go in and they do their job, and they did it bloody well. So I think they also brave, knowing what they're going into. They know they're going into attack. They can easily pull out, tell the chaplain, look, I don't want to do this. So I think we've covered that question fairly in detail.
Thank you. Yes, that's true. Do you have any comments for us, please?
Well, yes, I don't think that you ever go out to be brave. You go out into whatever the situation may be, and you're going to execute your work in the best of your ability and the best of your training you got, and you go out and you do your job. If you start talking about brave, I was brave with my first parachute jump. That's brave. Not jumping and all the other war stories that you hear. Yes, we did that, not trying to be brave, but trying to do the best that you can with the information you got and with your training you do to do the best of your operation. There's no braveness in the whole of soldiering. Soldiering do not exist bravery. Bravery just comes by itself, and I think that is how soldiers are put together, and they do their job as professional as they can. And out of that, maybe bravery come, but it's not done. I don't say to anybody, listen, I'm going to be brave now, I'm going to jump over the bridge, or I'm going to do this, or I'm going to do that. There's no story in brave. Brave just come automatically, and nobody even know that he's brave. You only realize that afterwards. And I can say with my two friends that I got, all of us got honoris cruxes, and we don't even know what happened. Other people know, and other people decided, yes, that was action of bravery. But yes, there's not a soldier that have to be brave. Thank you.
Hans, any comments from you?
Yes, Chris. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder. Bravery is in the eye of the beholder. It's like Jack and Doe said, you do what you have to do when you have to do it. And I mean, it's not the individual that decide, you know, if you were brave or not. Somebody else recommended you for whatever. So I mean, to me, it was, you know, you could have knocked me over with a feather when, you know, I was called in and said whatever, that you've received the honor. But no, you don't plan bravery. You know, you execute what you have to do when you have to do it, to the best of your ability.
Well, Internet, we've tried hard, but I'm afraid we didn't get through all the questions. But that's fine. What I'll do is I will end the video here, and we will then have a third episode next week, Saturday, like always. And that's where we will answer the rest of the questions. Thank you for listening here to our guests, Frans, Doe, Jack. Thank you so much. We really appreciate your time. Until we meet again, God bless.